Hi, everyone. It's Brenda back again at the beginning of 2020, interviewing my first person of 2020. I'm so excited. So we're back again with Three Uniques, and we've got Srivatsan Aravamuden.
Yes, you said it right.
Okay, good. Thank you. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you on, Sri. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm so glad that you chose me for this year.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. So we were talking earlier before we recorded that Sri is going to be my first interview of 2021. I'm still not used to saying 2021 yet. And last year I got up to 40 people. And my goal this year is to take it to 100. So you're one of that, like that new plan for 100. So I'm super excited. And we got connected on LinkedIn this year because we have mutual connections on LinkedIn. Pam Ross out of Toronto, who we both know, I think was one of those people that introduced us. And I remember when I first connected with you, first of all, you liked and commented on a lot of my content. So I was very grateful for that. And then the second thing is I started following your posts, and you were traveling across Canada. You were taking that time, like just during the pandemic when, things were shut down and people were working out of home more. You took that time to go and travel across Canada and see different places. And I was like following your journey. And so it was really fun to be connected to you that way.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that I had the chance to visit your side of the city, like in Calgary, and going to different national parks in Calgary, like Jasper, Banff, and Kootenays National Park. I had a bit of a work that needs to be done on the other side of the Canada, but that was not the main reason why I took time to travel. I always wanted to travel, and pandemic was the right time. I mean, like you're working from home, so you can work from anywhere, and that gave us this freedom and liberty to be anywhere else in the world. And I didn't want to go out of Canada, of course, with all the restrictions, but within Canada, my partner and myself, we said, okay, let's go, and we found a way to enjoy the beautiful Calgary.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you're based out of Toronto, and you're a business development director with RootQuotient.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, Sri.
Okay, so I've been in IT for about 20 years now. I would say IT has become my second nature, to be able to find problems that people have, like in terms of business objectives, and finding ways that technology can be of help, and bridging that gap between what people want to achieve in their career dreams with respect to their business and such, and having IT or technology helping them. So I started my career as a help desk assistant, and now I am a business development director for a startup company called RootQuotient. We do technology consultations and digital transformation. So I'm really glad I have done this journey of understanding technology for myself and helping people with it.
That's amazing. And your messages on LinkedIn are also very inspiring. Like you'll talk about technology and innovation and creativity, those topics that are related obviously to, your field and the work that you're doing in your role. But you're also very inspiring. You'll talk about vision, you'll talk about purpose, connecting to people, really being compassionate. And so just, a whole sort of perspective, like almost like my coach will say, like a heart-centered leader approach to work and life.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. I believe we don't work with computers. Although I work in technology, I believe I don't work with computers. I work with people behind the computers. It's always the people that matters. You have to keep the people at the center of whatever you do. And all the solution we are building, all this innovative, creative, fantastic world that we are building with AIs and machine learnings and such, we are building it for the people. And we should never forget that it all goes back to the person.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you're here today to share your three uniques with us. I'm really excited. So please go ahead, tell us.
Yeah, as much as I'm excited, I'm also a bit nervous about sharing these three uniques with me. It's like sharing your most vulnerable part, but here we go.
Okay.
I think the first unique is that I'm authentically and outrageously myself. And given the fact that I'm openly a gay man from Asian community, sitting in front of you, talking to you as a development director of a startup company, I think I've lived this truth of being outrageously myself. And the second unique I want to share today is getting things done. This is one of my favorite uniqueness about myself. And growing up as a son of a priest, and all the bedtime stories I heard was like, God help those who help themselves. All these mythical characters and things that I heard from my dad and my mom is always about you helping yourself, and then God will come and help you. So getting things done is one of my favorite unique that I want to share about. And the last one is having the courage and finding the courage within yourself to share your values and share your virtues with all those in your social setting as well as in the work setting. Because you can have many virtues, but if you don't have the courage to share them, to show them, it's very difficult for you. So these are my three uniques.
Awesome. I just love how like elated you are right now sharing them with us too. Like you've got this big smile on your face. It's, you know, I know just from connecting with you online, just even hearing about those three, the second one didn't know as much, but it makes sense. And your first one, absolutely, like being authentically you, like that is like having not known you, and this is our first time really connecting, but seeing you online, that's totally who you are. So I'm excited to get into them. First thing though, my first question is that you asked about, or you said at the start, you said it was like, you know, a little bit hard for you, or it's like you're putting out your vulnerable self. But you're like on video all the time and on social media all the time. So why is it hard for you to talk about what makes you unique?
I think it's the humility and humbleness we Asian people are born with or been taught from the beginning, that you have to always put others first and you always have to take up the less space in the room and you have to be humble to others. Right. It also comes from 200 years of colonization, and you know, like a lot of things comes from culturally. Right. I'm still struggling to get over the fact that I can occupy the space and I can command the space in a room, you know, without being very rude about it or very outrageous about it. You know, I think there's a balance that needs to be done for all the Asian people who come from this similar background to be able to have that, you know, confidence and come out and say, you know, I can take up the space.
That's a really great perspective, and that definitely opens like me up and opens like sort of my insight up. I mean, as a woman, I think we also struggle with that as well. So you talk about 200 years of colonization in South Asia. As a woman, not the colonization part, but just as a woman, I think like, you know, oh, if we're too seen as being too assertive, then, you know, we're too aggressive, right? You know, and versus in comparison to a man who can be aggressive and seen as being strong-minded and, you know, confident. So I think, you know, women have also struggled, you know, in that same sort of point of vulnerability about just being themselves, being unique, and, you know, and do I have to be fierce and strong, or can I be soft and compassionate and tender and sensitive? And are those seen as being like not good skills to have as a leader or as a business person? So I think, you know, it's interesting to hear a perspective, but I totally relate to that as being a woman and a lot of women that I coach. So
yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And when I saw my mom is a great homemaker, and she could have been much more than that. And seeing her struggle with her abilities and finding ways to, you know, just keep it within ourselves, you know, like because she is a wife of a priest and she has certain limitations. I mean, she can't go to work, she can't do A, B, C, D. But then she has this beautiful persona about her, and there is so much that she could have given to the society. And seeing her struggle with that has helped me also to break these barriers and understand that, you know, empowerment for women is very important, and being outrageously yourself is very important. All this rebel character that I have also comes from seeing my mom, you know, suppressed by the society.
Yeah. Okay, that's amazing insight. Thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about your first unique, authentically you, right? How did you phrase it again?
So authentically and outrageously being yourself.
Nice.
So I think all of us, we believe we are ourselves. We believe in all that actions we do, in the thoughts we have, in the words we speak, and the actions we do. We believe we are ourselves. But sometimes when we actually put us in perspective and see for ourselves, there's a mask that we wear everywhere we go. We are either somebody's husband, wife, or mother, daughter, or a manager, or a friend, or a customer. So we wear all these masks, and when you are yourself, you drop all these masks and you actually find out what you are as a person. For me, not just being gay, but also being true to my identity as to what abilities I have, what limitations I have, and what are not my limitations. Sometimes we confuse what is authentically us with the limitations. And this is very important for us to understand. Our limitations are not us. Our limitations are preventing from being ourselves. And sometimes the uniqueness about us, we can consider them as limitation. For example, I do have a visible Indian accent. This is fine because I come from India. To have an Indian accent is
Yes.
absolutely fine. To be able to verbalize in English is very important for the line of work I have, but I don't necessarily have to have an American accent to do so. So finding this balance between what is unique to you and what is your limiting abilities is very important. And I think when you do that, two things can happen. One, you are loving yourself, every bit of yourself, and you're putting it out there to shine in the light. And two, you're helping others also to step into their own light, and being yourself also helps others to be themselves. So this is one of the greatest gifts you can also give for others. By being authentically and outrageously yourself, you can help others to be themselves.
That is so incredibly perfect. I loved everything that you said there. You articulated it like brilliantly. And I think it's just a clear message for everybody, even going into this year, that, we saw some of the things that like held us back, right? That, and, people I'd see it on Instagram or other social media channels, how they couldn't go travel, etc. And at the end of the day, you strip out all of that and you just look at yourself and like, how can you just show up the best way that you possibly can? And again, not having like known you until today, but only knowing you on social media, I was just like, this guy is always showing up as himself. And it was really inspiring. And I look forward to your posts like during, some of the like sort of darkest days of the pandemic this past year. So it was great to always, oh, there's Sri on LinkedIn and he's in Jasper and he's like so happy right now. And he just went to Banff and he saw like, I don't know, bighorn sheep or something you're talking about. But it's just like, you're always just so excited. And yeah, it was amazing to see that. So thank you for living that every day. We need more people that just want to push themselves out there and be, outrageously themselves. So that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me also. I'm
Yeah.
glad you appreciate my posts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so your second one is get it done.
Yeah, I think this is one of the best qualities I have about myself, I believe. God helps those who help themselves. This is a slogan that keeps coming to my head when I talk about getting things done. When you are in a situation where you don't have all the necessary tools and resources to get things done, you are in the bleak situation, but still you have to have that ability, the thought and the courage, or that feeling inside that you have to get things done. For me, I've done all my schooling in Tamil medium, which is not English. So learning English was one of my biggest challenges. So there was a time in my college, I was studying computers, and there was a big lecture hall, and the professor is giving out some lecture in English. And I always have this problem of framing the question in my mind in English before I ask them. So because it is very difficult for me to talk in English because all my schooling was in Tamil. So I tried asking a question and he said, come again. And I didn't know the phrase come again. Actually, I stood up from my desk. I went all the way to him because I thought he's calling me closer.
Like, come here. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that was the most embarrassing part of that. But I've learned then that English is very important. But I didn't have the necessary tools to learn English. Everybody that I was surrounded with were all speaking regional language. My mom and dad spoke regional language. They are not well educated and stuff. So what do? I asked the professor, can you help me? I want to study English. And then he said, get onto the library and read some books. I didn't have money to get onto libraries, and those days the libraries cost a little bit of dollars to spend.
Right.
So yeah, I used to ask my neighbors, kids who go to English schools, to give me some books. And one of the books I got my hands on was Hardy Boys. Hardy Boys was fantastic. I started with Hardy Boys, then I moved on to Sidney Shelton. I surrounded myself with English. Like I bought in some cheap DVDs of Friends, which are pirated copies, but that is what I got in India, where I came from. So I surrounded myself with English. I've learned English. And I think in any situation, it doesn't matter where you come from and who you are, as long as you're willing to get things done, you will find a way to get things done. And you have to, move from where you are and be resourceful in whatever you do. And you have to find creative solutions for it. So in every job I took, there was no clear career path. The main aspect of me doing a particular job was it paid me and it supported my family. And starting from that point, and I found ways to, get onto different roles within the job, to provide my ability to learn something out of the job. And that is when I started learning and growing organically in my career. And where I am right now as a business development director, it didn't happen me consciously working for it. It happened organically from the path I've taken from an help desk coordinator all the way through my different positions I held in IT.
You and I share that same uniqueness. And I'd say probably 85% of my career positions that I've had to date haven't necessarily been prescriptive or something that I had chosen to do or woke up in the morning saying, hey, I'm going to go do this. It was just more like sort of organically, or me putting myself out there to get it done, like recognizing that there was a need in the business or a need with a certain aspect, like a program or a department, and me just saying, hey, I'll take it on. Like I ran IT in 2 organizations, and I didn't grow up in IT. My dad's a developer. And, I'd always worked really closely with IT teams leading projects, but I saw at some point or another that integration between people, process, and technology, and knew that that was something that I was passionate about. And I also knew how to find really good people in IT to do the work that I needed to do or other work in organizations. So at some point or another, I just raised my hand and said, hey, I'll take over the IT team. They needed a leader. And people were like, you'll do it? I'm like, sure, I'll do it. So I think, part of that is, I didn't know what I was doing. But I knew how to lead people, and I knew how to solve for business problems. And, so those 2 things put together, and finding really great people that were just as passionate about me, like me, to do the work. It's like you can get lots done. So I love that that unique that you have, and we share that in common.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And I love your story about learning English, and that example that you gave with your professor. Because I've traveled the world a lot, and I've talked to like servers in restaurants and taxi drivers and people working in hotels that I've stayed at, or Airbnb rentals, like the families that I've stayed at in their rental properties. And I'm just so fascinated how, everyone that I've met internationally is speaking English to me, and so concerned for my well-being about whether or not I understand them. And most of the time I'm just like, teach me your language. Like, thank you so much for being so considerate to want to make sure that my needs are being met as someone who speaks English. And yet I'm in your country, so teach me your customs and teach me your language and what's the word for this. And I'm just so fascinated that, and that's, I think, a learning in that as well, is like, I think we take that for granted as, someone who learns English, who lives in an English speaking country and does it all the time, is that there's a whole world of other languages and cultures out there. And like, we can't be isolated. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your story and the challenges and the challenge that you took to overcome that.
Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. I think English is a great language. I find English has so many different ways of expressing yourself. Compared to the mother language that I come from, English is definitely different in the way the sentences are pronounced and the way the verbs and adverbs are done in a sentence.
Yeah.
But it is also interesting for non-native speakers to learn English and speak it in a way that makes sense for them in their mother language, because we think in our mother language. This is something that we not get out of. So there's a bit of a translation that goes on in your head. You think in your mother language, and then you got to translate it in English.
Yes. I've experienced that because I speak French, and so, but my first language is English, and so I'm always the same way too. And when I go to France or Quebec, and people are like, "That's not the right congregation," and I'm like, "But it makes sense in English," and so I just, yeah. And so your third unique.
So you got to find the courage within to do all that you want to do with your life. I think this is one of the quality that helped me with my first 2 uniqueness, like to be outrageously myself, to be gay in an Asian community, to come out and say that I'm gay. I'm not going to, wait in the closet and, suppress who I am just because you're not going to approve of me. That took a lot of courage. Mm-hmm. Actually, it was so difficult for me to come out to my parents because my father is a priest and he's very well respected within the community in India. So it was very difficult decision for me to come out and say that, I'm gay. I'm not going to follow the family norms of getting married to a girl when it's not right, and so that took a lot of courage for me. And not just with that, with all the career decisions I made, courage played an important role. This is something that is inborn in me at some level, I think, because of my mom. I find her very, very courageous, although she was suppressed in several different ways. There was this one community meeting that was held. There was this big podium, and there were like 200 people speaking about how to do great things for the society. And this was within our society, which was like a priest society. And then my mom, somebody asked us in the stage, like, if you have any concerns to share, come and share. And I think throughout the meeting, nobody from the women community got up and shared something. But my mom went up to the stage. She held on to the mic, and she was not very confident. You can see her hands shaking when she was holding the mic. She was definitely nervous, but she had certain things that she wanted to put forward. And that was one of my defining moment, that I looked at my mom, who is not from a well-educated background, who is from a corners of a society, who has been suppressed all along, and taking up an opportunity which was given to her and finding that courage within her to express what she wanted to express. Right. And I think that image I still remember to this date, and I find that very encouraging, to have courage. And when you have courage, you can practice all the virtues that you have. You can get things done. You can be outrageously yourself, and you can show up in a meeting like this and speak to people from the other side of the country, and still be able to make them understand where you come from and what you do. You have to find that courage within.
That's such a great story, and it's so amazing that you have your mom as really a hero for you, right? To model what that looks like.
Yeah, exactly. She is my hero. She always is.
That's awesome. That's so great. And I think I think you're right. As like, I love the example that you shared about yourself being a gay man coming out in India, your father being a priest, and obviously his reputation within the community, and how that could be a reflection on him and what he does and what he believes. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but also from a safety standpoint, like a gay man in India at some point or another, based off of like who you are, your age, may have been like an unsafe thing to do, right? I mean, like, we've had, that happens obviously in North America. We have like Pink Shirt Day to talk about that and raise more awareness of it. But I think, it's probably still very unsafe for a lot of
It is very unsafe, and this is one of the reasons why my partner and I migrated to Canada. Right. We met each other in Singapore. I was living in Singapore, working in Singapore for about 10 years. He is living in Singapore for like 6 years when we met at that point in time. Right. But we started dating, and we shared this apartment with one other flatmate who also happens to be an Indian. And she found out that we are a gay couple, and then she asked us to leave the apartment. So we have been literally thrown out of the apartment by our own flatmate, even though we had equal rights to live in that apartment, mainly for the reason of being gay and being shamed for who we really are. And this has been my story all along, and I try to define myself outside of it. But unfortunately, I have to come out every day. I have to come out every day in some form or other to somebody or other. Like, although it is not safe in India right now, the laws are changing. So we got rid of the 377 law, which talks about consensual sex between same-sex couple. Okay. So that has been scrapped out, thankfully, last year. Right. But we still we still have a long way to go from people's mindset in changing that mindset from accepting everybody for who they are. Because Indian literature, contrary to what India believes right now, Indian literature is full of characters who are transgender, who are two forms, two-spirited. And, we have all these mythical things that accepts different forms of sexuality. And for God's sake, we are the one who did Kama Sutra, and we have a temple specifically, values sex and different forms of sex.
Well, and the Kama Sutra, right? So, I mean, all
of that. And we have temples which has sculptures of different sexual intercourse and such. So it's a culture of diversity, and it's very hard for us to talk about belief system which is so diverse, and then talk about sexuality which is not so diverse in the minds of a lot of Indian people. Again, this is form of British colonization, where the 377 rule itself, the consensual sex between people of same gender, was imposed by British rule. Right. So these are some of the things that we still carry till date. But although the Britain reversed that law several years ago, but still India and several Asian countries like Malaysia hold on to that role. So even though we are from India, so one of the main reasons we wanted to come to Canada is to be ourselves and authentically live our life as a proud gay man.
Right.
So we came here and we got married last year, and actually my mom came here. She flew from India to here to support me, and she walked me down the aisle.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. That's so great. Thank you so much for sharing your story with me. It's really awesome to be able to connect with you.
Yeah, it is same here. The feeling is mutual.
It's so great to hear about it. I have a couple more questions for you. And I know this one's going to be a good one. I already anticipate that the answer is going to be a good one. So how has a failure or an apparent failure set you up later for success? And do you have a favorite failure?
Okay, so yeah. Okay, so I think we all learn from failures. This is something that everybody talks about. I have failed several times, so many times that I can't even remember now. I think one of my favorite failure is that when I left my job when I was 30 years old. I was working for a big company in Singapore, Credit Suisse, and I left my job to study design again. So at that point in time, I nearly went bankrupt, paying for my tuitions, and at some point, I didn't have enough money to have my lunch or print my assignment. I
Wow.
decided to print my assignment that day, and I felt like a failure on that day in time because I didn't plan my expenses very well, and I didn't plan my the route I wanted to take with my career to study design again. But then what I learned from that failure is that as long as you're willing to work through it, as long as you're willing to see what you have accomplished through that failure.
Sure.
So basically, a failure is different outcome of what you wanted to achieve, right? So what I wanted to achieve was a stable life and still have my passion and study design. But I couldn't achieve that. At some point, I lost all my money. That was my failure.
Mm-hmm.
But then it also taught me how important it is for me to learn design. So I think if you look at your failure, there are some part of the failure that reflects who you are and it reflects what you can do with that situation. That's what I really like about failing.
Yes.
Um, so sometimes it is very difficult to accept who we are because we don't want to see ourselves on that light the failure is reflecting on. This is when we tend to forego failure as a negative thing and move away from it. And I would say accept it with open arms. Like if you're failing it, fail and accept it in the terms that like it's reflecting my abilities, it's reflecting who I am, and then move from there. And
Right.
I found a way to do prototype designs, to earn some extra money. So I didn't have enough money, so I had to find ways to get some money.
Right.
So I called up all my contacts and I found a way to do prototype designs because I was learning design and I could design some screens for an IT company because I had a background in IT. I was doing IT for about 10 years before that.
Right.
So I pulled out all my contacts and I found a way to hire myself as a freelancer for a tech company
Okay.
designing their screens. And that's when my job started after I finished my master's in design. So
Right.
yeah, so when you accept your failure, when you accept where you are right now, even if it is at the bottom of the ocean, there is only one way, that is way up.
I love that story because, well, a number of reasons. One, you took a risk and invested in yourself, even though maybe it was like a bit of a chance, either it was going to go positively or negatively or whatever. And the outcome still, even though you went through, that state, that day where it's like, okay, do I pay for lunch or do I print my assignment? And not being able to afford both of those things, you still, at the end of the day, invested in yourself to grow your potential, to get you where you are today, right? To pay for the things that you have. You were in Jasper this summer. Like, life will shift, it will change. You'll have good days, you'll have bad days. But I love the fact at the end of it, you invested in yourself and you stayed committed to that. The second thing that I love about it is, yeah, you got in there, right? Like you got in there and figured out a solution. And it's like, okay, I called 10 people. I started freelancing. I started picking up odd jobs. Like, I love that, right? Like, so you didn't necessarily stay in that space of failure. Like the failure didn't eat you up. it actually triggered you to do something better. And
I think failure is, sorry to have interrupted you. I've just remembered something. Like failure is like a closure to what you've been going through all along. Like failure gives you that closure and says that, you know what, you failed. Now it's the time to reflect on. Now it's the time to go back to the boards and see where you have gone wrong and where you reflect that on yourself and your abilities and move from here.
right.
So I think failure in a way gives you that closure, which, you know, all along you've been on the path to failure, but you wouldn't realize that until you actually fail.
Yes, exactly. So now just take a different path.
Yeah, absolutely.
That path wasn't meant for you. It's maybe meant for somebody else or whatever. So go take another path and switch it up. You don't need to stay there, which I love. That's a great story. Okay, last question for you, which I think is going to be cool. If I could give you a gigantic billboard to put anything on it and to have it anywhere in the world, where would you want it and what would you want on it? Like, what would you want printed on it?
Oh, I would put it on Times Square.
The New York City, Times Square.
Yeah, so I think I still haven't gone to Times Square, but I think that's one of the places that I think people around the world have seen, at least on the New Year's Eve, they see the Times Square,
right.
The clip of the ball dropping the Times Square. So I think that's one of the places where everybody has seen it. So I would put it out there, and it would be outrageously yourself.
Be outrageously yourself. I love it. So awesome. Sri, thank you so much for being on 3 Evenings today. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you more, hearing your story, and just, seeing the authentic, outrageously you. It's amazing. So contagious.
Thank you so much for helping me verbalize these 3 uniques about myself. It was quite a challenge for me to, you know, put them into 3 sections. And I had done a little bit of work before this meeting, but then to be able to talk to you, to be able to speak out my truth has also helped me understand my truth myself. So thank you so much for that.
Yes, thank you so much. And for everybody that's tuning in, take a thread from, Sri's cloth here, as far as like everything that he shared with you about his life, coming to Canada, things about coming out, like, so many great stories today. And what I say to everybody, and this is what I'll say to you too, Sri, is there's 7.5 billion people on this planet. Somebody needs what you've got. So start sharing your 3 uniques with everybody. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.